All righty then. We got another episode of Hockey Royalty Live, the official podcast of hockeyroyalty.com. We are talking about our favorite Kings jerseys, the release of Chell 24 and the middle six forwards. How does that shape out? Where were their deficits last season? How do they shape up this next season? So get in the chat, like and subscribe. Let's go. All right, guys. Thank you guys, everybody in the chat. Some people here early. Appreciate it. CJ coming in with good evening, everyone. Noah, howdy. Hope everyone is having a great night. Noah, I believe if this is the Noah I'm thinking of, he's my friend from Texas. Met him at the first Kings game I ever went to here in Dallas.
Oh, nice.
We've been friends ever since. So welcome in. Topanga, hello. Go Kings, go. Al Smith, yay. It's almost time. Howdy, y'all. Let's go. Hit that like button. Appreciate that, Al. Like your life depends on it, man. Frantically hitting that like button. Shake Master's like, what's going on? How's everybody doing? Go Kings, go. Yeah, I know we were 1 minute late. Joe was telling us all about how his Everton team sucks. And so we had to wait for that to hit the broadcast button. But we are here now. Let's go. Let's get into it. But before we dive right in, I cannot ask how my co-hosts are doing. So Russ and Joe, how are you guys doing?
Doing good. Yeah, we're couple more weeks away to rookie face-off, and then right around the start of training camp right after that. So we're getting there.
Yeah, not too bad. I don't know if you guys are like this at all. There gets to certain parts of the year where, so I'm a big, we've talked about before, like fantasy sports and stuff like that. I'm huge fantasy baseball, so I'm like all in on approaching fantasy baseball playoffs. That with the exception of like the Premier League is starting up, Italy starts up this weekend, but like the Kings, and the Yankees are an abomination, but the Kings are like, it hasn't hit yet, hasn't like clicked. It's still August, but then once it does, it's full force. Like that's all I think about is hockey, and then like baseball is a total afterthought. Like I don't even consider it a thing but when it's in, it's like all in. I'm weird that way. Like I go kind of up and down. It's like nothing is half-assed. Like when it's in, it is in. And like I've been just so tuned out of hockey really all summer. It's been weird, but I don't know.
Especially with the Yankees going the way they are. At least the Dodgers kind of doing pretty well. Can't complain about that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, I mean, I think it's there's so much for me. I mean, I'm kind of the opposite. I just can't wait. Just been thinking about hockey, and I think a lot of it is because the anticipation of this season coming up for the Kings and like shiny new toy, obviously in PLD. So there's so much. I'm just ready for that puck to drop against Colorado at Crypto.
Yeah.
But how you doing, Brandon?
Outside of this coughing attack that just came across me, pretty good. Yeah, just prepping for Europe in October. So, getting the hotels going, getting the agenda going down, waiting for those Real Madrid tickets to go on sale so I can make sure I get some of those. But other than that, just working. My parents were in town this last week. So that was fun just to see them for a little bit. But, I don't really have any other sports right now. I mean, I could care less about the A's, with what's going on with them. I guess football, spring training's gone. Or not spring training, but training camp is gone. But I'm so sick of the quarterback controversy there or quarterback dilemma or whatever you want to call it that I'm just kind of tuning out at training camp, which I'm not used to doing. So, yeah, it's just kind of different. I've been watching a lot of sports documentaries. That Johnny Manziel one was pretty crazy. Just all the stuff that he did and kind of like the whirlwind that was for just that 5-year period of time. And then just completely gone out of the universe. And the estimations of what he would have made in this modern era of football, as far as with the NIL deals and stuff like that. Like,
oh yeah,
they sold like $58 million worth of number 2 jerseys and like, all this kind of stuff like that. And then now
he had the whole like money thing with his hands and all that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So it was just crazy, like what would have happened and like what he could have made at that level, but just kind of the way he flamed out. And then just interesting how there's been no backlash yet from the NCAA about his Heisman, yet they still haven't given Reggie Bush his Heisman back, or they said they wouldn't. So it's just pretty crazy because he openly admitted to signing like thousands of autographs and taking money and all this kind of stuff in the documentary. So It was just interesting. And I think that's kind of like where I've been, just like the sports documentaries, really just kind of catching up with the history of different things. I want to see Wrexham season 2. I think that comes out here pretty soon.
Did you watch the first one? Did you watch Wrexham, the first one?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, you did? Okay, yeah. I got one more episode. My wife and I got one more episode to watch, and then the second one's coming out in what, a month?
I'm not 100% sure. I know it's the end of the summer. Yeah,
I think it's September 12th. I want to say.
So just a little hand and a little everything. So that's what I've been doing there. So let's jump right in, guys. We are talking about our favorite Kings jerseys here to start it out. And so, I haven't been a fan for too long, so there's only really been one jersey in my fandom. But talk about, you did an article on it, Russ. Talk about your favorite jerseys and kind of where you went with this.
Yeah, I threw out that tweet the other day, just kind of get the vibe out there, get a little feel of what the fans were thinking before we started talking about this. And I don't know if you guys saw the tweet, but the 4 pictures I used, or the 4 jerseys, in my opinion, these are the top 4 jerseys in the Kings history. And I left out like the early stage jerseys with the form blue and yellow, just because I think the reverse retro jerseys just top them, and they're pretty much the pinnacle of what you can get to it with those colors. So what I had was the 2 reverse retro jerseys. I believe it was 1998, I want to say, is when they adopted that shield crest with the line with the sunglasses jersey. I mean, I freaking love that one. And then the chevron with the silver or the white and black. I think I just really like the way the white looks with that logo. So I used the white color. But so for me, these were the top 4 jerseys, in my opinion, that the Kings have worn. And if I had to rank them, just to kind of answer my own question that I asked people, I would go Reverse Retro 2.0. That's my favorite jersey by far. I love the white. I love the old school crown logo. The colors, obviously. Everything looks so good with that jersey. And then right after that, I'd go with the white and black 90s era jersey, Gretzky era, with the chevron logo. That would be my number 2. Number 3, I'd go with the Reverse Retro 1.0s, the purple ones, or form blue, I should say.
With the Chevy logo?
The Chevy logo, yeah. Okay. That would be my number 3. And then number 4, I'd go with the shield crest kind of logo that was a 2000s era shared with Rob Blake as the captain. I just really love that logo, and I think that kind of color scheme kind of works too. But what do you think, Joe? What do you got going on?
It's funny when you first threw that out, I was like, I actually kind of think that late 90s up until 2010, 11 or whatever, when they switched to, was probably the worst era of uniforms for me for the Kings. Maybe now looking back, I think I like it a little bit better than I did at the time. I did not like it. I've always been I've just loved the old school, the foreign blue. So again, forgive everybody. I'm colorblind. I don't know if it's purple, foreign blue, whatever you want to call it. I love those ones though. So what's hard for me to separate out is which one do I like the best? The yellow, the yellow mane or the foreign blue mane. But I love the Imperial crown. That's the best logo they've had. The best crown is the old school Imperial. For me, the Imperial crown. But I'm with you, Russ, that my number 1 favorite jersey is the most recent white version of that. Because I always, as a kid, you see all those, you see the foreign blue, you see the gold. I always wanted a white, and they delivered it. And I was like, this is perfect. This is the perfect jersey. So that's number 1 for me. So I don't know if I want to lump in the rest of like all of foreign blue, like that whole set. Like if it was,
it's kind of how I felt when I said it. I mean, it's kind of hard to differentiate. Right?
It is, but they would be 1 for me. Mm-hmm. That whole era. Number 2 would be 90s Gretzky Kings, the black and silver. Now, what was interesting though about that era, I'd love a solid 3rd jersey in that era, and we really didn't have one. Unless you want to count the Burger King jersey, because like I feel like if you had a legit 3rd, maybe you could turn like the era that you like there, Russ, and make that a purple and a totally different with those. That would kind of be a unique set because it was just the black and white. There really wasn't 3rd jerseys back then, but I loved that one would be 2. and to me, there's like a big drop to number 3, and I don't have a good like even feel for it because I don't love any of them the rest of the way. But I guess if I had to pick solely because they won the cup in them, you know, the basically the jerseys they wear now, but I really don't like these. I think the logo's atrocious. It has a terrible logo, crest that is on the front. But I didn't love the era before this either. So it's been a rough go in terms of Kings jerseys for me, to be honest with you. I haven't loved them. So this is why I'm adoring these reverse retros that they've done. They look fantastic when they do those. So I don't know. I would say, like I said, I'm all in on the foreign blue and gold. I love the early 90s because I like that logo better. Because obviously the color scheme is similar nowadays than it was to then, right? But the logo is so much better. And I would like to see if there's a way they can mix in a third to that. That'd be fantastic. But Rando, what do you think?
Yeah, I've really only had one jersey to choose from in my fandom, you know, and so I don't mind the current ones. It's just the ones that I grew up watching, or I guess started watching the team in. So there's really nothing to compare it. But when the reverse retros came out, that was like I needed to get these. Like it was just something there, and so there's really not much for me to go on. But I want to ask you guys, like, when is it usually like, when is there enough time, like in between rebrandings? Like when does it get time to, I mean, you're not the Red Wings, you're not, you know, the Blackhawks. So when is there a time for a rebranding amongst an organization, like after a decade? How does that normally work? Or
it's been like, I would say maybe like 10 years or so, 10, 15 years. I mean, it's all random, right? Or all depends on the situation. I wrote an article last year talking about the situation, how I feel like the Kings just need to go back to the foreign blue and gold, just color scheme, just as in whole. I mean, that color scheme is just so much better than black and silver or black and white or whatever. And so, I don't know. I guess it depends by team. It's been they changed like 2010. Like it's weird to see photos of Drew Doughty and like Dustin Brown wearing that old purple jersey, right, with the crown. And I hate that crown logo. I don't know. It just felt so boring to me. It was just, I don't know.
Which one?
I never really
Sorry, which crown logo?
The one right before, the jersey right before this one. It's just a plain crown. It's not the old school looking one. I'm never a fan of that.
No.
But
you know what would be cool to see? What would be cool to see if they had the color scheme they have now, but with the Imperial Crown logo.
Yeah.
Like that would be a cool, because I don't necessarily have anything against if they really want to stick with the black, white, and silver, like that's just like a thing. That's what we're going to be. We're the Kings. That's what we're going to do. We'll throw in the foreign blue and gold from time to time on special nights and stuff. But we are going to be like, if that's the thing, boy, they got to get a different logo. And I think a cool, like the logo, the crown from the purple, in gold, that I think could look, because I agree. I don't like that crown either. I don't like that crown either. Now, let me ask you guys, because there's been some like stadium jerseys, the gray ones, the black and white ones, the black, white, and gray ones, which are those even remotely good to you guys? Those are some of the worst things I've ever seen.
The Dodger Stadium jersey was just
sweet Jesus,
putrid. I mean, I have no idea. Like,
whenever they do gray, whenever they've done gray, because they've done so bad.
Like, when you play pickup hockey and someone comes out with a gray jersey, everyone's looking at you like, "What the hell are you doing, bro? Like, get a black or get a white. Like, let's figure it out here." Like, they always had those Saturday night gray jerseys too. Man,
so bad.
I couldn't stand them. The one I did like, the one that I guess I hated the least, or I actually kind of liked, was the one that they wore up in San Francisco when they played the Sharks. I actually kind of like that jersey.
Which one was that now?
It's got a little gray on it, but
the gray on top.
Yeah. Like, I don't mind that one. And the one that they played in Colorado, like, I guess it was just like something different, but even then it's like, I can't imagine they sold too many of those. It's just,
I did like the all white gloves with those jerseys.
Yes.
The whole team with white gloves, that look good.
Speaking of, Brandon, the Chrome Dome's gotta go. They're
kind of growing on me.
What?
It's weird. They're kind of growing on me. I feel like it's like become such like a staple of the Kings now. Like they came out with these Chrome Dome helmet. Now Vegas has their own, but obviously the Kings had at first, I believe, and yeah, I don't know. It's just I don't hate them. I guess. And I actually like those jerseys too. I mean, they're basically the '90s era, just with chrome logo. But
a little, and they're a little bit of pizzazz to them. I can live with it. I can live with it. I mean, I would take if you told me they were going to wear those jerseys with the chrome domes instead of this home plate logo. I would take it. Actually, I remember being really, really excited 20 years ago, because I think it's been like 20 years, Russ, that they've had these.
Lee pointed out to me that's been 20 years, man.
I think it's been so, but I remember being like pumped because they were going to go back to, there was like, they started because they first came out, it was a third jersey, remember, at first. And I was fired up to have the black and silver back. And then I saw the logo. I'm like, ooh, that ain't it. So I was hoping though, when they went to like a full time, that they were going to change the logo somehow. Because they have, not only does the logo suck, they have the crown you don't like right below it. It's like, it's a double whammy of bad. So,
but of course they win a cup and it's like, how are you going to change?
The thing. So how do you change it now? Because they've won 2 cups with this. So what do you do? So I don't know. Like I as much I'm with you, Russ, I would absolutely go back to the foreign blue and gold, and then with the white. So there's your 3 white. It's easy.
Yellow and purple. There you go.
Again, if they are like dead set on change the logo, go get that old crown back at least, to kind of marry the old with the new, I guess.
I'd like to see that combination, the white and black with that imperial crown on the front. I think that'd be pretty sleek.
I'd like to see it. It can't be worse. It just can't be worse than the logo they have now. It just can't be.
Yeah.
I just don't think they want to do the foreign blue and gold on a permanent basis with the Lakers in town. Like they wanted to distinguish themselves. Yeah.
But so the story behind that is the Kings actually wore the foreign blue and gold first.
Yeah.
They originated that. And the reason it's called foreign blue is because Jack Kent Cooke just didn't like the name purple. So he named it foreign blue. But the Kings wore that color scheme first, and then the Lakers came over. I believe he owned both franchises, I want to say, at the time. And so he adopted both. And that's another thing someone had pointed out to me too, is like I really appreciate the way the city of Pittsburgh does it, where just every team just has the same color scheme. That's so cool. And obviously it's so hard to do that out here, but I really appreciate that.
I never noticed that.
I mean,
it makes it easier to buy colors, for the entire city.
It's good. Hey, anything yellow or black, I'm fine. I can rock any game.
Well, let's flip it over here to Chell. So Chell 24 is coming out. Russ, when's the release date on it?
I believe it's October 6th. They have an early access if you pre-order or buy the X Factor edition on October 3rd. But yeah, October 6th is, I believe that's the release date. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that's it.
This is horrible. Breaking news.
What?
And maybe it doesn't ring as deep to you guys, but Buffalo Sabres, longtime legend broadcaster Rick Jeanneret, Mayday, so many historic calls, has passed away.
Oh, damn.
Reported by Mike Harrington of the Buffalo News. Holy God. I'm just, not to interrupt, but I just happened to see that. And any hockey fans, like, go back and listen to that guy's calls. I mean, I bought his CD back in the day. It was a roll the highlight film. I mean, legendary calls, like just one of the true characters of play-by-play that you just don't. So many of these guys today are a little bit more cookie cutters, unfair, but like such personality, such just an absolute legend. And that sucks. He was a staple out here in Western New York. So tough to add. That guy was a legend. So anyways, apologies.
No, yeah, I mean, just kind of obviously we don't hear much of Rick Jeanneret. We didn't hear much of him when he was announcing, but when I did hear the highlights of the Buffalo Sabres, you can just hear that energy and feel it. So I can imagine
legend
for Sabres fans, it's tough.
When was his last call?
He called his last game just a couple years ago because he's been splitting. He split up. It was an overtime game too, and I might have been Casey Middlestat, an overtime winner was his last call. But man, you go back and he had like these catchphrases, la 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 Fontaine for Pat LaFontaine. Go watch Brad May scored in game to beat the Bruins, and back in the 90s, Mayday. I mean, his calls were stuff of legend. I mean, you could get lost on YouTube watching and listening to some of the calls he had. I mean, he was incredible. So rest in peace, Rick Jeanneret.
So the new game's coming out. Russ, tell us a little bit about it. It looks like they're coming out with some new features, and if people who play Chell might be interested to hear about what the new model is coming out like.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm a big Chell guy. I've been playing the series for years. I don't want to age myself, but it's been a while. Since maybe like 96, 97. I mean, I love the game, and it's weird. Like the last few years, the game's been so bad. It's been so bad, especially last year. And it's funny because these new, I don't know if they're new developers, but they actually just recently came out with a video kind of highlighting some of the new features and where the direction of where this franchise is going to be going the next few years. And they even disclosed that they knew that last year didn't live up to the expectations that a lot of fans were hoping for. And so they're pretty much telling everybody that they knew the game was crappy. And it was terrible. And I understand how it could be so hard for these sports franchise games, like any of them, like MLB, The Show, 2K, Madden, obviously, and like how it can be so hard to create a new game year after year when everybody is expecting it. The anticipation is always going to be big. They're looking for something better, something bigger. And so I understand how that can be hard to make it feel like a brand new game, but for NHL, it just felt like it'd been the same game. And CJ's asking, I play on Xbox. I play with the new gen. So there's a lot of anticipation, a lot of actual like hype surrounding the NHL 24, because seems like they're actually adding a lot more elements that will make it feel like a brand new game. One of the new elements they're adding is a sustained pressure system, I believe, or sustained, I forget what they actually called it, but what it is that you keep, as long as you have offensive zone time, a little gauge will come up in the middle of the ice and will kind of fill up. And once it fills up, then the energy of the opposing team or defenders starts to go down. The goalie starts to go down. So that's a new feature that kind of gets added. So I appreciate that. They're also adding icon passing, which they're calling, I believe, precision passing, which is pretty much you can just click a button and it'll pass to each player is tied to a button that you can press, as opposed to just pressing pass in a direction, and hopefully it gets to the player you're looking for. So that's kind of a new feature. They're adding more physics-based hits. And then also I play a lot of the EA SHL game mode because I have a bunch of buddies that I play with. So sometimes we'll play like 6-on-6 or whatnot. I play a defense. And so they're adding new game modes to that. So I just wanted to say, I just wanted to touch on this a little bit. I appreciate where NHL 24 is going. And it looks like it's going to feel like a different game and a better game than it has been in the past. And I don't know, maybe if things go well and I have a little fun playing it, maybe I'll start streaming some games, some of our EASHL games, and talk some Kings hockey at the same time. So who knows? But I'm excited for it. I'm excited.
I've been out of the loop. I was huge into NHL back in the day before it was called Chell. It was never called that when I played it, Russ. I'm a little
like the new moniker now, I guess.
Yeah, the guys on the hockey team that I coach, I'll call it Chell. But I probably haven't. Honestly, it's probably been a good 15 years, really, since college. I just haven't. I haven't played it much. But is there a team? I mean, I would say the Kings are obvious. Like, was there a team that you would try to do a season with or do something with that you always just ended up playing that wasn't the Kings? Or was it, or is it just always the Kings that you were?
It was pretty much always the Kings. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's funny because like a lot of the years, obviously the Kings just weren't good. So
yeah.
If you wanted a little bit more of a challenge, then you could use the Kings. Yeah. And even when they were during the Cup years, it's not like they ever had any real recognized superstars. Obviously, we appreciate Drew Doughty and Andre Kopitar a little bit more than others, but it's not like they're going to be the fastest video game players to use, like the Ovechkins with the shot or whatnot. So, I mean, I'd always just appreciated using the Kings because it never felt like you were using some like OP team, like you're always going to be the top best team to use. like if you're using the Chiefs and Madden or something like that. So yeah, it's always been the Kings for me.
The go-to, this is going to surprise absolutely nobody, and this is where it really all started with my Flames love, was the Flames. Like Mika Kiprasov, Martin Jelinas, Jerome Iginla, they had the one line. I used to love doing manual line changes, and I would like control everything. We used to, in college, we did a full season. Like everybody played each other like 4, 5, 6 times. We did playoffs, Stanley Cup finals, and with the Flames, like that was my team. I was the Flames. It was a blast. Or if I was just playing buddies randomly, I would be the Atlanta Thrashers, and Ilya Kovalchuk was incredible back then. I would fire absolute missiles from the top of the left circle, and nobody could touch him. He was a blast to play with. So those were my guys.
I do remember using the Red Wings here and there for Datsuk, because if like at the time, I would say Pavel Datsuk was probably my favorite non-Kings player, maybe besides Rick Nash. I think Datsuk and Rick Nash, I just always loved watching those two play. And I mean, for me personally, I think Datsuk could go down as one of like a top 10 player in the NHL. I thought he was he's
incredible.
I thought he was underrated even at his prime.
Yep.
Like people were talking about Ovechkin and Crosby. I'm like, no, it's like Ovechkin, Crosby, Datsuk. Like that's how good he is.
My favorite thing has always been like creating my own teams and like building a team up. Yeah. That's why my favorite sports video game of all time is the NCAA game. Like the recruiting aspect, like building a team, taking Akron, taking Akron to the national championship and stuff. So like on the recent ones where it allowed you to create a 30-second team in the NHL, that's what I found myself doing instead of building the Kings up. Because it's like we talk Kings so much on the podcast. I watched so many Kings games. It was nice to have like you created your own jerseys, you created your own stadium, you did all that kind of stuff like that, and that's what I enjoyed. And then you did a draft and you built your team from the ground up, and so that's kind of where I always went with it.
Love that too, Randon.
Yeah, I never. Yeah. You know what's weird is I never really dabbled into that, like the online franchise or GM mode or whatnot. I never really did much of that, but I think a lot of people are hoping for that.
Russell's cutting in and out. Yeah, like my brothers and I would always get together and create a team, create the jerseys, and then it's like it also was nice because then all three of us would take turns doing the minutia stuff, like like putting guys in and out of the injury thing or upgrading. So it's like and then we'd get to a game, and then we always make up rules like, okay, let's play one game a month during the regular season, and then then we play the playoffs, and if we only play the games for if we're going to eliminate or we're going to win the series or if we're being eliminated. And so if we go down 3-0-3, we play all 4 games to win, or vice versa. And so it was just kind of cool. And then we always try to test ourselves. So like we'd start the first season, just so we could raise that cup or whatever, not on rookie, but on the second one up. So it was fun. You get your chops together and you play. And then after that, it's like if you win the cup, we boost it up, and we have to win a cup at that difficulty. And then I remember one year we won it at that second difficulty, so then it was on whatever the highest one is, and you're just getting absolutely railed. Like, and it was just so tough. Like you had to have the most loaded team ever and some luck to just even have a chance, And but yeah, our favorite thing is like scouting players, getting the players scouted from different countries, and making the right draft pick and getting an all-star and. Like that's our favorite, always been our favorite thing. That's why, especially the NCAA game, is like the recruiting aspect was great, and that's why that game still sells. Like I think it's a PlayStation 3 game; it still sells for like $50. Like, and it's just used copies of it.
That was my favorite thing to do with like MLB The Show back in the day. Was I would pick a team with like a stadium that I liked or something like that, or the jerseys that I liked. Literally just do what you did, like rebuild the roster, create a roster. I didn't even play the games. I just would simulate the season because I love the roster part of it. I love being a GM. I love doing the roster moves, the trades, the free agents, the negotiating in the off season. Like that was my favorite part. I hardly even played. Like if I wasn't playing against a buddy, I didn't have as much fun playing against like the simulation. I wanted to play against another person. If not, I was just simulating and doing the management piece. I was like a nerd in that aspect.
Yeah, always fun, always fun. Well, maybe we will. Jose Garcia coming out here. We need to have an NHL hockey royalty stream. Maybe we'll drag Russell out and get him to watch him play online and have you guys watch this with us. Before we get into the middle six talk here about our roster, it's time to bring in our sponsor here at Hockey Royalty, which is DraftKings. So new customers, download DraftKings Sportsbook, use promo code THPN, bet $5 and to score $150 in bonus bets instantly. That's code THPN only at DraftKings Sportsbook. So let's get into our topic of the day. We've been going through the roster last week. If you missed the show, we did the top line and the top pair. This week we're doing the middle six. And so why we're doing the middle six instead of doing offense and defense is that we think with PLD, we think there could be some maneuvering around. A lot of guys that maybe could play on the third and second line, depending on chemistry and how it goes out. Obviously, Danault's going to move down and PLD is going to fit in that second line at center. But how does the rest of it shake out? We saw Fiala play in the top 9 last year, depending on chemistry at times. I have a feeling we're probably going to see Arvidsson do the same thing this year from time to time. So it's going to be pretty crazy about how this shakes out. But the biggest addition for us, obviously, everybody knows, we got a guy named Pierre-Luc Dubois in the offseason, boys. So he's going to shake things up in the middle six, starting out with a center. We expect him to play with Fiala to start. So let's start with that pairing. And we've talked about it a little bit on previous episodes about why we think they fit together. We also thought that about Kopitar, so who knows if it really is going to come together on the ice. But we think that the styles, stylistically, they match up. And so, Joe, you want to start us off with that pairing or that pair within the line. How do you think they fare together as a partnership, and what can you expect to see from them next season?
So first of all, I think what you said is a really good point, that you really never know how this shakes out. I think we all assumed Victor Arvidsson was going to play with Andrei Kopitar when he came over. That didn't last long. All assumed that Kevin Fiala was going to play with Andrei Kopitar when he came over. That didn't last long. Here we're assuming Fiala and Dubois are going to be a pair. Maybe not. It may not fit. We just don't know. The reason why I think it could is I think when you think of Kevin Fiala, you think of a guy that loves to possess the puck to the neutral zone, that loves to enter the zone with possession. And you know what? So does Pierre-Luc Dubois. So per Corey Schneider's all three zones tracking, Pierre-Luc Dubois had a carry in the zone percentage of 78.5. Again, per the tracking, there's only 3 forwards in the NHL that were more than that. Braden Point, Jack Hughes, and Kirill Kaprizov. That was it. He carried the puck into the zone more than Connor McDavid, more than on the percentage-wise per that tracking. So I think that's an interesting thing that you could see 2 potentially just dominant players in terms of zone entries with possession. And when you think of those 2 guys, one of those 2 guys almost always entering the zone with the puck. And for that matter, I think Fiala was like 77%, 76% in that mid to high 70s range. So he was among the better ones in the league at doing so as well. So you could have 2 of the better players at carrying the puck through the neutral zone, carrying the puck into the zone, and immediately setting up an offense. So it's a matter of, you're talking about a team that was pretty good off the rush. You're going to have guys that are able to carry the puck in the zone. So who is that trigger man, if you will, on the line? And I think maybe that's why you can make the argument for Arthur Kaliev. It's probably not who I'd start there. I think it would be Arvidsson. But I think the reason why they could work, and Russ, I don't know if you agree, but you got 2 guys that control the puck entering the zone and control the neutral zone. And I think that can be really, really dangerous.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad Brandon mentioned that. I mean, last year, I think we were talking about it. I'm sure everybody assumed that it was going to be Kopitar and Fiala, right? And that's obviously how it started, but it just didn't really work out long term. So yeah, we have to take it with that caveat with Pierre-Luc Dubois and Fiala this time around. But I mean, if they can work out, which I think there's a decent chance that they will, like with everything Joe's talking about, 2 highly skilled players that played somewhat different styles. I would say probably very much different styles, and Dubois, which he's known to be like a front of the net type player, and Fiala is going to be the guy who's going to be moving around, playmaking, and all that good stuff, being creative along the boards, open ice, And if Pierre-Luc Dubois can kind of create havoc in front of the net, I think that sounds like a match made in heaven. And for me, if you're going to start Arvidsson on that side or any kind of shooter with those two players, I think it works out. So I'm super excited to see. And I mean, for the Kings, if this pair does work out, I mean, should be great, right? Because you already have that first line established with Kopitar, Byfield, and Kempe. And then we know how the duo of Deneau and Moore play so well together. It seems like pretty much anybody can slide in on that other wing spot works pretty well. So I mean, the top nine. It's funny because if you think about it, like the Kings, if you rank like the middle sixes in the NHL, Kings probably have one of the best, if not the best, middle sixes across the league. I mean, when you have Pierre-Luc Dubois and Phil Deneau as your number 2 and number 3 centers, and you can mix and match them any way you please, along with Kevin Fiala, Victor Arvidsson, Trevor Moore, and whether it be Arthur Kaliev or pretty much anyone else at that sixth spot, dude. This forward core, we've said it so many times, but this forward core is looking so good, and I'm excited to see what PLD and Fiala can do together.
I think Brandon has talked about it a few times throughout this summer about how important and how interesting a player Arthur Kaliev is, because this is an opportunity for him. Like regardless of what line he's on, whether it's, well, I shouldn't say that. I mean, if he gets the opportunity on the second or third line, it's an opportunity for him, and I think it would be somewhat of a disappointment if he couldn't crack that, because, you look at the shot contributions from last year, he's second on the team in shot attempts per 60. Like you want that guy with a distributor. And I think that's why he kind of worked pretty good with Blake Lizotte at times, because Lizotte was a good distributor. But if he can become a more consistent player in all three zones, this being Kaliev, then he can utilize that ability to get himself into shooting areas with, again, whichever line it is, whether he's with Fiala, Dubois, Deneau, Moore, he's going to get scoring opportunities playing with those guys. These are all players that are creative players, and especially Fiala. How many times have we seen? So and I know I think, I won't speak for Randon. I know Russ, you just said, and I kind of agree. I think I would start Arvidsson up there, but man, you can make a case if Kaliev can hold his own defensively, you can make a case that you've got the way both Dubois and Fiala possess the puck entering the zone, and then especially Fiala, the way he possesses the puck in the zone is able to create time and space and just hold that puck an extra second, half second, wait, and then Kaliev can get open. You feed Kaliev and he can fire a laser with Dubois with his heels at the top of the crease. Like there's a lot, like you can see that happening. It's just, is Kaliev ready for that consistently, I think is going to be the question. But what's nice for McClellan is there's options. Like there's a lot of different options here. And let's be honest, maybe there's somebody that we're not thinking of. We've kind of assumed the 6 guys that we've named as quote unquote middle 6. Who's to say somebody doesn't crack that? Who's to say Carl Grunstrom doesn't get a spot up there just because of his work ethic, that maybe he outworks Arthur Kaliev, for example. Maybe somebody goes down. Maybe Samuel Fagimo has just a camp that can't be ignored. I mean, there's an opportunity there for others as well. While I do think this is the most likely middle 6, you just never know.
Mm-hmm. Lee coming in here already saying, I'm already mad that Kaliev starting the season on the 4th line press box rotation with Grundy. He's just seems like the T-Mac doesn't want to give us what the fans want. But I think the pairing or the pair of Fiala and PLD is interesting, and I kind of think that they're 2 black holes on the ice where players are being sucked in towards them as they're playing. You look at Fiala, possession of the puck on the boards and on the wing. People follow him around, and like you create holes and gaps in the ice, and that's why you're seeing the cross the ice sauce passes out of nowhere that he's able to find people on. And you have PLD, who's a big body in front of the net that's going to be pushing defensemen out of the way or getting in the way of the goalie. I think there's going to be, if you're making the case for Kaliev, obviously he's going to be the least looked at in that trio to keep an eye on, which means he's going to find soft spots in the defense, which is what he's really, really good at.
He's good at that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I just don't know if there's enough defense on that line for them to be effective. Obviously, Fiala has taken a lot of penalties. He's not the most. It's not the effort that I worry about. It's just the defensive acumen. And so PLD is going to have to carry that line defensively. And is he strong enough to do that? I'm not so sure. So then does Kaliev go to the point of 2 years ago where he was a very good defensive player? Granted, he was playing fourth line minutes. Or is it the Kaliev that we saw to the end of last season, to where there's going to be a lot of counter opportunities against that offense, right? You're going to get both players down low. There's going to be a lot of counter shots there, where I think Victor Arvidsson is good defensively enough to where he wouldn't be a liability on that line, where Kaliev playing on the third line with Deneau and Moore, who are defensively sound and also decent playmakers. I think that would be the better line for him.
I'll tell you, and I'm already Lieb's gonna wanna hang up. I think after I say this, like, boy, you talk about spreading out offense. If we talked about the top line that we think will stick together with Kopitar, Byfield, and Kempe. If you've got Dubois and Fiala together, you got Deneau, Moore together, whether Arvidsson's up on that second line. Boy, like, is it the worst thing in the world to come with a fourth line that has Lizotte and a lethal scoring threat of Arthur Kaliev? Like, you could potentially have an Arthur Kaliev get double-digit goals on the fourth line. And could Samuel Fagemo play with Phil Deneau and Trevor Moore? Like, I feel like those two guys anybody can join that line with the way those two play and make it effective. Like, there's a part of me that's thinking, like, boy, I think Lizotte and Kaliev is a really good duo. Like, you could have a scoring threat on every line. I don't hate that either. I know it's like it maybe sucks for Kaliev, but boy, I don't hate that.
No,
we talked about it quite a bit, and
yeah,
we talked about it quite a bit, and I think that he doesn't have to be on the second line to be effective for this roster. Mm-hmm. He just has to get continuous power play time.
Yep.
In order to do so. And that's where I think that his lot's going to shine, because they took him off the power play like halfway through the season, and he was leading the team in power play goals. And I don't know if it was just like a penalty type thing. He was in the doghouse, what have you, or if it was just the flat out his play on the ice. But I mean, he's lethal. You're not playing defense on the power play. You're sitting him on that dot, and he's just rifling shots left and right.
And that's why I don't think it's a horrible thought to have him on the fourth line with Lizotte.
Well, that last spot that we're talking about, that we're kind of penciling in Kaliev in that middle six position, that's a position that McClellan probably just has open from, like you said, anybody at training camp. I mean, whether it be Grunstrom, whether it be Fagemo, whether it be Akil Thomas, Alex Turcotte. I mean, I could see any of those players just having a really good training camp, a really solid preseason, and taking that spot. And you could say the same thing for that fourth line spot that we're talking about. We're probably penciling in with Grunstrom. I feel like those are the two spots in this lineup that are probably the most open. Trevor Lewis isn't going anywhere. Lizotte, obviously. So, yeah, I don't know. There's going to be a lot of training camp battles that we'll have to watch. But in terms of Kaliev, he's going to have to get all of his goals on the power play. That's where a majority of his goals are going to be coming from, which is all right. And I don't know if he's going to be looked at to be this even strength scoring beast, but I don't know if he's going to be playing with Phil Deneau and Trevor Moore, which I think he should be playing with. He's played some of his best hockey of his career, according to the analytics, with those two. Mm-hmm. So if you can start those three together, I mean, Phil Deneau is no slouch. He was our number 2 center for a reason, and you pair him with Trevor Moore, if they can find that explosiveness to pair with a shooter like Kaliev, man.
Yep.
I mean,
I like that idea too. It's just because of how good Deneau is and how good Moore is. Like, I almost think they could prop up almost anybody. So it's like you could, like, if there's a way to, if you move Arvidsson up with our hypothetical Dubois and Fiala, like, I think you could have Deneau and Moore almost. Take a young player under their wing, if you will. Yeah. And I bet that line does perfectly fine, because more or less they're matched up against the other team's third line. It's not as if you're putting a Fagemo on line 2. You're putting him with, in theory, Danault and Moore on a third line. And again, you have a more established NHL player in Kaliev than Fagemo is with Lizotte, and like you said, probably Trevor Lewis is in that mix. So, I mean, that's just deep, and there's threats top to bottom. I mean, even if it is a Fagemo and a young player, pick any young player, right? Or even pick Grunstrom. It's in the mix, say on that third line. Like, that's still going to be an effective third line, and a third line that's probably going to live in the offensive zone with the way Danault and Moore drive play. Like, the more I'm talking about this, maybe I am kind of penciling Kaliev in next to Lizotte because I love it. It's like I just feel like that could be a dominant fourth line. And when you can have a mismatch on all four lines, man, as a coach, I think I love that.
Well, Kaliev, Lizotte, and Lemieux were so good together.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I'd love to see Alex Turcotte come into training camp and just seize that middle six spot that we're talking about with Danault and Moore.
Talk about a line that would buzz.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've seen Turcotte during his healthy days with Ontario. When he's playing up to his game, he's one of the best players on the ice in terms of just motor around the ice, puck possession, constantly hounding the puck carrier. And those are all the same kind of characteristics that you kind of see from Danault and Moore. And if you could have a third player like that, dude, that's going to be a Corsi beast of a line.
I want to look at this theoretical second line here, and could they be our best offensive line? And you could theoretically see three guys get 25 plus goals in Victor Arvidsson, PLD, and Fiala. Is it going to be a worse mismatch, so to speak, than our theoretical first line with Kopitar? Is it going to be a line that you see out there to end the game when you need a goal because you have more offensive weapons than the first line? Obviously, the first line, the ceiling of that line, as we talked about, it's going to be based on Byfield's progression. But you're looking at the second line here. I mean, Arvidsson had 60 points, and PLD's been right around 60 points, and Fiala was a point per game player before he got injured. There's no reason that I don't think that all of them couldn't get 25 plus for that line. So is that going to be the best offensive line that carries us when you need a goal in those games? In the last 5 minutes, you're down by one. Is that the line that you throw out there repeatedly because of the offensive firepower?
It absolutely has the potential to be. There's no doubt, especially, again, every opponent's going to pose different matchups, whether it's a line matchup or a D matchup or whatever it's going to be. But Randy, you're right. I mean, if that is the line, the hypothetical second line, absolutely. I think they are all capable, and that can be a very dangerous line. Yeah, and no question about it.
It's funny that we talk about, like, the more I think about it, we talk about this hypothetical PLD line as like the Kings' second line. But if you think about it, and you put Kopitar up against the other team's top line, I'd much rather have Phil Danault up against another team's second line. And then you can have Pierre-Luc Dubois and Kevin Fiala be that just wild card of an offensive force, like Randon's talking about, go up against a bottom six line or even like a fourth line of another team when you're playing at home. I mean, that's that added benefit of you having that other center on the team, and Pierre-Luc Dubois is now you don't have to worry about sending out Kupari with somebody else, or even Blake Lizotte against bigger type players, because you can have Pierre-Luc Dubois, who's more than capable offensively as himself. You pair him with Kevin Fiala, who we all know his offensive regimen. I mean, you could have just this, I don't know, just such a bad match. It creates such a bad matchup for the other team is when you have to defend against Kopitar, have to worry about Phil Danault shutting down your top offensive line. And then all of a sudden, like, oh, okay, here comes Pierre-Luc Dubois and Kevin Fiala too.
Yeah, they really have that many more options, Russ, for particularly when they're at home, or, if they're on the road or and the opponent ices the puck, you can right away come back with either the Kopitar line or the Dubois line, which, is just a whole other level of offense than what they've been able to bring, I think, in the past from a depth standpoint. So, yeah, I agree. I mean, I just And you never know how all this shakes out because again, we're operating under the assumption that the first line stays intact, and that may not stay intact. You just never know. But I think for McClellan, I think he's got a lot of options. I think he's got a lot more flexibility, and I think he's got a lot more quality and depth on this team. And I think I would bet he's pretty excited about starting this season, looking as he's coming up with his line combinations and looking at all his various notes on his notepad. I think he's loving the potential that he sees.
Shake Master coming in here saying, I'm with you, Russ. I think the PLD third line could cause a real challenge for other teams. I think a lot of people think of first, second, third line just because we've all played Chell, and you have to stick lines in there and they get automatic, in the video game, you're automatically getting a certain amount of ice time based on the line that you play. But realistically, you could see this Kings team play the top 9 almost equally within, a minute of separation of on ice time, because you can make mismatches. If you need a defensive stop or if you need a change of momentum, get the Corsi line out there with Dano and Trevor Moore. If you need a goal or you need some crazy offensive energy, put the PLD line out there. If you just want a consistent, chance at a snipe and a good face-off, get the Kopitar line out there. And then I think, we're not talking about the bottom line, but then that leaves Grunstrom, Trevor Lewis, Lizotte, and Kaliev kind of all thrown in there, depending on what we end up with. And that's going to be a forcible line to be reckoned with as far as the physicality and the defensive acumen that they could bring, the irritatingness. So I think the mismatches, the Kings are going to be able, or Todd McClellan's going to be able to exploit teams and whatever he sees in this zone. And we should see a higher level of offense. I know the Kings were one of the top offensive teams in the league last year, but I don't foresee a reason why that you can't exploit more mismatches with the center depth that they have.
I also wouldn't be surprised if late in a game or maybe in certain offensive zone situations, late in a period, Dubois played a little bit of wing in his career. He is a center for the most part, by and large. But again, if you're down a goal or you get a late offensive zone faceoff, the idea of Dubois playing up with Kopitar and Kempe, for example, I think I could easily see that happen from time to time as well, that you see Dubois loaded up with Kopitar here and there in certain situations. I think that's very possible.
You get
Not a consistent line, of course. I'm talking like situationally in latent periods, games, whatever it might be.
Like 6-on-5 kind of situations.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get PLD out there with Kopitar and Kempe. Then you have Doughty with Brant Clark and Jordan Spence is around there. And sounds like a lot of fun. Hopefully there's not too many of those situations where we have the net pulled. But, yeah, there's definitely those options that they didn't have before. I mean, it's funny because we've talked about, just kind of thinking about just a few years ago, we were talking about, this top 6 is, so bad. When you have Alex Iafallo was playing first line, or even just at the top 6, I always thought about him as being more of a third line type player on a really good team. Yep. And same thing with Phil Deneau that we talked about. It's he's more of a third line center on a really good team. I always kind of compared him to Jarrett Stahl kind of situation, that type of player on a Stanley Cup winning team. And now the Kings have that. And I think that's why the anticipation for this season is one of the more highly anticipated seasons for the Kings I can remember. I mean, even I would say probably going back to the Cup years of maybe 2013 or 2014. Because, even 2011-12, it kind of snuck up on us in terms of them being actual Stanley Cup contenders, let alone winners. But now that they just keep adding and adding, whether it be Dano Arvidsson, then they added Kevin Fiala, now they've added Pierre-Luc Dubois. It's now you can almost see that finished product, especially with players like Brant Clark coming and Jordan Spence probably getting a spot. It's everything's tied together now almost, and there's not really much to tinker with anymore. And it feels like this is the time.
Well, what I like too is in the past, I think there were players kind of fighting for spots, but there was a lot of holes on the lineup that were either unproven or didn't have a ton of NHL games under their belt. You really didn't know what to expect. And again, you look at the top, you look at the entire lineup. Kempe is established at this point. Really, you don't know how Byfield's production is going to be, but Kaliev has now played. He's got some NHL games under his belt. Even Anderson Dolan is starting to mix in some games. And I know I don't know that he's much going to be in the mix for this middle six conversation, but I'm sure he will be when we talk about the fourth line in the future. But like, you got a lot of players that are going to be able to fill holes pretty easily because they've been in the NHL, and now you're waiting on maybe, I think you mentioned Russ, a Turcotte, a Fagemo, somebody like that maybe could pop and spot in somewhere. But it felt like before you were hoping for kind of like 2 or 3 of those guys to do that in your lineup. You were hoping for Kaliev, Kapari at the time, Turcotte. You're hoping for Byfield as like a third of your forward group. You were hoping to be kind of all these young kids, and that's just tough to do, I guess. When you need them to play important roles, when you don't have the quality that you should have in the top part of the lineup, but now they do, and now, I think it really the balance is as good as it's been in years.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting the way this team shakes out, and Lee kind of agrees with what has been said here. The Kings had 3 lines, played 13 to 14 minutes, fought 5-on-5 last year. This year will probably be the same. They're just going to be able to roll continuous waves, and that's when the Kings are at their best. When you just kind of see nothing but just bang, bang, bang all game long, and it's not one line carrying us. And then when you get to those stretches of the season when a certain line is not playing as well, we're going to have more opportunity for other lines to pick that team up. There's probably going to be less lulls as a whole for the team all season long because of the fact that you can have the 2 other lines pick you up and carry a team. So,
yeah, it's funny. I'm just kind of looking at some of the stats in terms of Phil Deneau and Pierre-Luc Dubois. They both played. Pierre-Luc Dubois played 18 minutes, 27 seconds average time on ice last year. Phil Deneau was 18 minutes and 20 seconds. So these are 2 players that are going to be playing a lot of minutes or are used to playing a lot of minutes. So, yeah, that'll be something to watch to see how McClellan kind of figures that out. And I wonder if we'll see Pierre-Luc Dubois' minutes almost come down a little bit more. Kind of like what we saw at Fiala. He didn't really average that much time on ice even per game. You kind of look up and you have 3 points on only 14 or 15 minutes a game. And I wonder if maybe that's why maybe we'll see McClellan utilize that line and more situationally and not less like, okay, on the fly, let me throw out Deneau or throw out PLD as opposed to maybe throwing out Phil Deneau, who's the better 2-way player. But when you get that offensive zone draw, all right, let me throw out PLD, Kevin Fiala, and Victor Arvidsson. Let's see what happens there. So that'll be something to watch with how McClellan distributes that.
Yeah, I like those ideas there. Lee coming with a question. I'm not really sure, Marissa, maybe you know how this is going to shake out. Do you guys have a sense of how the preseason roster is going to be split between Australia and the U.S.? Do you think that they're going to do a mix of veterans and rookies, or you think the veterans are going to get a chance for the publicity that would be the Australia games?
So that was kind of weird to think about. I was thinking about this the other day. The rookie camp, so Australia game is Saturday, September 23rd. The rookie face-off is the weekend before. Training camp will probably start like what? I guess the last rookie face-off game is the 18th on Monday. Training camp usually starts on that Wednesday, but if they're playing a game in Australia that Saturday, I wonder if training camp starts before the rookie face-off or they get like some earlier training camp, because you're not going to come to training camp on like a Wednesday and they're like, okay, we have a game in Australia that we have to fly so far away to get to. I'm not sure how the roster is going to be split, but I can't imagine them sending too many veterans over to Australia for a trip that's probably going to put such a long pause, I feel like, on the training camp schedule for them. I don't know. Flying these days is maybe a little bit easier to endure than it had been in the past, but you're talking about such a long flight, such a long trip that I can't imagine they're going to be sending too many veterans to be like, okay, like now have a long break to kind of adapt yourself back to the U.S. or whatnot. And so it'll be interesting to see, because I know it'll be tough because they're going to want to obviously hype up the game and have some of the best players going. So yeah, I'm not sure. We'll see what happens. I remember when they announced the Australia trip and we talked to McClellan the day after the day, whatever. And it almost felt like you can kind of tell there was almost a little bit like, I don't really want to go. It's the kind of situation, or it's kind of like a tough situation you're putting on our team right at the beginning of training camp. But it is what it is. I mean, the Kings have done this before. They've gone to China as it is. So I don't know. But I'm excited. It should be fun. There's a few of my followers are from Australia, and they're really excited. So I hope the Kings put up a good show and at least take a couple of the vets over there. I mean, you have to take Jordan Spence, right? Jordan Spence has to go.
It has to. One thing I want to throw out that we didn't mention, just because again we've kind of assumed that maybe Fiala PLD is a duo. You know, Fiala he did play with Dano last year, 127 minutes with Dano and Arvidsson. And it was a 58% expected goals. Like, it was a pretty good 127 minutes, which is not by any means like a huge sample. But I wouldn't rule out the fact that Fiala could play with Dano too. I mean, there's so many different combos that are going to take some time to kind of get sorted to see how they all fit together. So that's one that could still happen too.
You can see a turnstile in there in the middle six, depending on how the team's playing.
Yeah.
And what is going on there. So, well, guys, it has been a good show. We're just cruising over that hour mark. Appreciate everybody in the chat here. I think you can always see our articles coming out at hockeyroyalty.com. Follow us at hockey_royalty, at Randall Commando 24, at NHL Russell, and at JW Paterino. We're going to be slowly going through the roster and expectations for next season. The team is shaping up to be a lot better, and then hopefully rookie camp or the rookie face-off and training camp starts. We can talk about some real hockey instead of some hypothetical stuff going on. That'd here. Nice. But appreciate you guys coming in. You always have been a loyal fan base. We appreciate you coming in here in the dead of hockey news and keeping us company. So, as always, on this podcast, go Kings go.